This is part 2 of a double episode of sorts. If you haven't heard the previous episode, consider checking that out first. The previous one, titled Day Zero, a delayed Town Hall 17 preview, is a conversation I had with Trample Damage right after viewing the initial Town Hall 17 demos in Helsinki last fall. This is the follow-up, a mid-lifecycle review of our current top Town Hall. The idea is to compare our initial reactions then to our thoughts now. We're going to reference that conversation a few times, but you're not going to be lost if you haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, no worries. This is a little different than usual, so I hope you enjoy them both. Let us know what you think by leaving a comment on Spotify or YouTube. And now, here's part 2.
What are we calling this? Is this a podcast?
Red. It's Clash.
Good morning, everyone. This is Reddit Talks Clash. This morning, we're doing a bit of a follow-up. You know, I recorded an intro for this, but I did it at the same time as I did the intro for the last one. So, I don't know what I've already said if you're listening to the recorded version. So we're just going to do it again. Last time we talked to Trample 6 months ago, last time I talked to him, we kind of did a Town Hall 17 preview and of the things that we just saw in Finland for our first look. And now we're gonna look at Town Hall 17 a little more in depth. Now it's been out for 6 months. Today, I just looked according to Clash Ninja, is day 174 of Town Hall 17. So we're right near that 6-month mark, halfway into the expected year-long life cycle of Town Hall 17. So I figure we'll just kind of mirror the path that we took through the Town Hall 17 preview from the last episode, and just take a look at what we, a little bit of what we got right, what we get wrong, things we did or did not see coming. So everyone here in the live audience, if you guys have questions, we have a bot that tracks them, and we're going to go through some at the end. So use the command !ask, and then ask your question in that same comment. Liam will show you how to do it in chat, I'm sure. And then at the end, we're going to go through questions. But now, let's just break it all down. Let's start with defense. So the key defense, Town Hall 17, the Flame Spitter, also known now as the Firespitter. Trample, now that you've had 6 months to deal with attack gnome, how do you feel about the spitters?
So I'm going to say the very first time we talked about this, it was after seeing the initial, we had all the creators in that lobby area in the hotel when they were showing us all the cool new stuff for Town Hall 17. And at the time, so we recorded right after seeing the first example of how all of it was going to work. And at the time, the Firespitter had a substantially larger damage per second, and the pellets that it shoots penetrated past the initial troop that it hit, where it wasn't absorbed by those troops. It was at like 650 DPS, and it would go through the troops. Like, we saw a queen charge get 100% melted in seconds from one of the Firespitters. So I think when we were originally looking at this, thinking about it being much more difficult, we talked about how, the blind spot is really necessary because they are going to be taking so much damage. And then in the subsequent week or so after that, they were saying, oh, you know what? Actually, we realized we intended for the bullets to be getting soaked up by other stuff. So it wasn't supposed to just continue going through all the troops. So they're not like piercing bullets. So we changed that, and they reduced the DPS. And I was arguing very heavily in the creator program saying, I think it's going to be a little bit too easy if we don't leave the DPS higher. So either leave the DPS higher or go ahead and reduce it, but allow it to pierce through. Because while the Firespitters are dangerous defenses to deal with, they are not as dangerously punishing as they were when we first saw them.
Yeah, I think we use the word scary a lot, like way too many times. I had to edit out, but it was scary looking. It was, it still had like it still had the same wide range, but it would push through, almost, more like a super archer. The change to make it not do that, it can still damage big groups and things. It's just not as much DPS punching through. How much do you pay attention to spitter position when you attack it right now?
I've been playing a lot more in Legend League lately, just because my other game, my other Super Slug game, Squad Busters, just died as far as I'm concerned. so I started playing more. On Clash. I actually have 4 Town Hall 17s in Legend League right now. A couple of them are up around 5,700 trophies, so I'm getting decent bases I'm up against. And I'm using a Spirit Walk Root Rider Valkyrie army on 2 of them. And if I'm approaching a box base, the first thing, or the main thing I'm looking for, not a box base, like a centrally located town hall, so somewhat symmetrical base, but with a town hall in the core. I'm usually trying to see if there's a way that I can approach from behind the Firespitters, and that's my primary thing that I'm looking for. So I still think about them, and if I'm making a Hydra attack or an air attack, because I'm not doing a Spirit Walk Dragon attack, I'm just using like a sort of old school Hydra attack. I will try to approach from behind them if possible, but it's not something that I am planning for as thoroughly as I expected to when we first saw that thing. Because there was the example she gave us. She was like, I don't know, she put like, like 12 or 13 or 15 witches just splayed out in front of a fire spitter, and every witch and every skeleton was dead in like 5 seconds. And I was like, what the holy crap now? And now it's still, fire spitter could absolutely mow down an army of regular witches and their skeletons, but it's going to take longer because it's not doing essentially splash damage by going through all of them. So it's still powerful. It is still definitely a force to be reckoned with, but it's not something where toward the end of an attack I see, oh, there's just a fire spitter that's still up, and I get nervous. The defenses that I still get the most nervous about coming down to the very end of an attack are the monolith, a single target inferno, depending on how many troops I have left. And then honestly, a lot of times a ricochet cannon or a multi-archer tower or the multi-gear tower before I would think, oh no, there's still a fire spitter left on the map, because I know that more than 50% of its range is blind. And even when it is facing the troop, until the troop gets right in front of it, it's got a decent chance to miss because there's a little bit of randomness with how the spray goes.
Yeah, there's there's real good odds that if you're down to one fire spitter left towards the end of an attack, like 50-50 odds that it's nothing. It's just HP for you to get through. Sam, like how are you dealing with fire spitters?
I think very similarly to Trample and you by extent, especially because I've been using a lot of Root Rider Valkyries recently as well, and like if I can, I will try to go behind them because it is still a fair bit of damage, and if I can just avoid taking it, I will. But I don't think of it the same way as I think of the Town Hall and Eagle, whatever. I don't think of it like a monolith. I don't even think of it like an Inferno tower sometimes, really. Especially when I'm going on my RC walks with the invisibility boots or the electric boots, sorry. I'm not, if I can get a fire spitter, that's great, but I'm not targeting it in the same kind of way.
In Legends, I like the fire spitter locations are some of the first things I notice. If I can get one down with my Royal Champion charge, I normally will, and almost always there's good value on the way to that. And they're deep enough in to where that's going to be a good enough funnel. It's not always like my primary concern. There's bases where they're mostly pointing the same direction, and it's fairly easy to come from behind. I think those are like really looking at like drags and yeah. So
Yeah, there's very few scenarios in which I can't just path behind them, especially with the Root Riders. I can just construct my funnel in a way so that I can just go behind them and then not really worry about them.
I'll be honest though, when I face those box style bases where the town hall is located more toward one end of the base, right? It's like the rectangular base with the town hall sort of near the perimeter on one side. With a lot of my old school armies, I would come opposite the town hall. I can think about when I was using a Super Hog Rider army at Town Hall 15, I was coming opposite the base and finishing on the town hall. When I at Town Hall 16, I was attacking those same bases. I was coming at it from the side with a Hydra attack. At Town Hall 17, when I'm using the current incarnation of the Spirit Walk Root Rider Valkyrie army, because I was using a Zapquake one until Congressman Coolrick told me I suck and that I need to switch to something that's more meta, which he was right about me needing to switch to something more meta, because while I don't suck, and it is a good army composition to use because Zapquakes are awesome, it's not as consistent for me. But I'll complain about that more to him offline. So when I'm attacking those bases now, I am, even if both fire spitters are pointed at the town hall, I still come straight at the town hall, and I will go directly into the path of 2 fire spitters facing the entirety of my army, because I'm going to get a little bit of a funnel on one side of the town hall with the Spirit Walk, a little bit of a funnel on the other side with my Archer Queen and my Barbarian King, and then I'll take a few seconds of damage from the Firespitters with my 4 to 7 healers, depending on what my Archer Queen's healers have done, and then I'll use my Tome and just plow right through both of them, and then keep moving on to the stuff on the back side of the base. So I do try to pick them up, but I'll go
I
straight
think
at them if I
that's
need
so
to.
much allowed, like the going to town hall as well, with the fact that we don't have the Giga poison anymore. So like you don't feel like you need to save it till last, and not really send your whole army into the Giga poison, because you can just power through the town hall, and there's no consequence of destroying it.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't really pay attention to the Firespitters at all. Like I used to in the beginning, like look at them a lot, but now it's just like I don't even notice them anymore. For me, it's mostly the air sweepers for my dragon attack.
How much are you guys paying attention to the position of the Giga Bomb now that it's separate from the town hall?
None whatsoever.
That very little, to be honest.
Like on symmetrical bases, I like if I happen to see that one, as I just said, I'll try and aim for a spitter. If one of the symmetrical sides has the Giga Bomb, I'll try and go to the other side just for the chance that my Spirit Fox survives. But yeah, it's nothing that I can't say I've ever seen a replay where it saved my base. Obviously, it contributes to all the different fails, but yeah, it's nothing that I really like that I really adapt to. Like I'll see sometimes I accidentally get good pathing around it, and I'll feel smart about it. Like, oh hey, that like that worked out. But it's nothing it's nothing I plan for.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the Giga Poison was the massive kicker in the Town Hall before. Less like, because the immediate damage could easily just be dodged by either a Warden ability, or if you just got tanky troops and you got healers, you'd probably be fine with just the damage like you are with a Giga Bomb. But it was the poison that kicked you, and we don't have a replacement for that.
We sort of do. The
Well,
town hall flames they continue to deal damage as you're soaking
that's
it in.
true. That
And
is
it
true.
it
But I
does
don't
put
think
out
it's
4 different bursts of it that are landing in different spots. So it does have, I think on average it probably works out to something very similar to what we had, because instead of it being in a concentrated area in one spot that lasts for a longer period of time that can definitely be more devastating, we are getting it drip fed to us over the course of a longer period of time because the town hall does have such a large range.
which is then easier to avoid because you can heal through it easier. You're not getting slowed down. It is just more dealable with in that sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess for me it feels less scary, like having the dripped Infernos instead of the poison. So maybe that's why it feels less powerful.
Over the course of a whole attack, you're getting maybe more DPS than you would have through the through the poison, depending on how quick you get the town hall down.
That's true, but Sam's point is fair with how prevalent healers are in the meta. Between the healer puppet and healers just backing a lot of these ground armies, it does feel like something that we are able to power through a little bit more easily than the old town hall poisons. And I ignore the Giga Bomb for the most part, except when I was using my Zapquake Root Rider Valkyrie strategy, which is a really great strategy, by the way, that people should try. If I had 2 compartments that were, like you said, Rick, if there's 2 compartments that are roughly comparable, but one has the Giga Bomb inside of it, I would zap that compartment just so that I would be able to sort of path around it. But I think that thing needs to deal closer to 15 or 1700 damage for it to be something that is truly relevant.
So, do you guys think the Inferno artillery has effectively replaced the Eagle artillery, or there's a bit of a gap still kind of there?
I think I stopped paying attention to the Eagle artillery at Town Hall 16 for the most part. I very seldom found myself worried about it. So I'm going to say I feel like the Hero Hall did a relatively good job of replacing the Eagle artillery because it's the same amount of hit points. But I rarely found myself going, oh man, the Eagle artillery is really going to punish my troops.
It was so far down my checklist on things to worry about during Town Hall 16. Like I don't get like when people were like, "Oh, this is huge." Like, is it? I don't. Yeah, like I didn't see it.
It definitely doesn't hit the same as it did back at Town Hall 11, does it?
No.
No, not at all. And it's one of those things that over time, it's nice. This is part of what I like about how they've chosen to allow the game to evolve. Is it gives us a new experience that doesn't just have to be something where we're compounding and adding to previous iterations of the game. It gives us something new and interesting to focus on, because the relevance of the Eagle Artillery really did drop off. It was obviously Town Hall 11, we're like, there's the Eagle Artillery. And at Town Hall 12, we're still worried about it. 13, we're still worried about it. 14, still worried about it. 15, between the spell towers and the monolith, the Eagle Artillery dropped dramatically on my list. And at Town Hall 16, I was more concerned about the positioning of the ricochet cannons and the multi-archer towers than the Eagle Artillery, because the ricochet cannons could mess up a siege barracks that was going to drop down early, or it was going to mess up a queen charge, maybe taking out the unicorn, or there are other things that I cared about more than, oh, at some point I'm going to encounter this 5,400 hit point monstrosity that is maybe going to kill one of my troops, or it's just going to lock onto my king and tickle him for a little bit because he's got so many hit points.
Yeah, like at most it was something I would try to also get with zaps or a fireball. But yeah, it was never like a priority. Speaking of merges too, we got a third ricochet cannon, third multi-archer tower, and we'll talk about the multi-gear tower a little down the line, because that was not part of the initial Town Hall 17 preview that we saw. That was totally new and surprised us. But yeah, the addition of third merge towers, how do you think that did overall for the difficulty of Town Hall 17?
I feel like it has just pushed us more and more into a situation where we can only really use armies that have bigger, beefier troops. That's part of why I think Root Riders are still so strong in the meta, and why Dragons are still so strong. And we see a lot of other strategies, whether it's throwers with healers on them or super witches, because some of the smaller units that we used to get a lot of value out of, for the most part, are just too squishy because of everything on the map essentially turning into a splash defense. Right? Earlier on in the game, wizard towers and mortars were the things that we had to worry about as splash, but their DPS was relatively low, so we didn't necessarily mind it very much, because we could overwhelm with 32 or 33 hog riders, because only one of them was getting targeted at a time from each of the defenses. And granted, the Expos have long range when they're on ground mode, they deal a decent amount of damage, but we've effectively turned the majority of the defenses on the map into defenses that target multiple units. And the balancing trick with that, I think, has skewed things to make it a little bit easier for us to just rely on the power of the heroes. Because the ricochet cannon, for example, deals a lot of damage, but it can't necessarily be dealing 700 DPS, which is what it might need to do to more effectively mow down an archer queen that has some healers on her, or more effectively take a barbarian king's hit points down into some true danger range. That's my biggest beef with it, is I feel like it's taken other strategies where maybe we would have used something like more miners or more witches or more hog riders, and it has put us in a place where, because of the ricochets, because of the multi-archer towers, it feels like it has narrowed our offensive choices, which again, it's an evolution of the game, which is interesting, but I miss having options of doing an attack at Town Hall 16 or 17 where I'm using some kind of 8 earthquake spam army that has witches and bowlers, because the multi-archer towers mow down witches too easily, and the ricochet cannons help take out bowlers too quickly, and that kind of feels a little bad, but the game evolves.
I think the other thing with that merge defense is that whether you got the arch tower or the cannon one, it's also the fact that there's just a lot less kind of filler defenses now. Like, for example, you never worried too much about a cannon or an arch tower, right? But they were there, they did a bit of damage, but you didn't think about them. Whereas now, I feel like, to an extent, you do have to slightly worry about almost every defense. Like, maybe minus the builder huts and the mortars. Like, everything else, you are kind of thinking about. Especially with the ricochet cannons, they do a lot of damage. You can't just like brush them aside like you did with a normal cannon. So that has definitely also kind of changed the balancing of the fact that you just have to think about every single defense.
Yeah, those ricochet cannons always throw my queen and the healers off guard, so can confirm.
I hadn't really been considering the conversion of point defense to splash like you mentioned a few minutes ago, and yeah, I mean that goes back to Town Hall 15 really, before we had all the merge stuff. But I don't know that Town Hall 17 really has evolved the game much because the meta attacks are still the same. It's still Root Rider Valk, Super Barb, dominated. And your alternative is essentially drags. And we've added Electro Boots into the meta as an opener. Overall, 17 doesn't feel significantly different from 16, which is where my biggest source of disappointment really comes in.
I don't feel like that's an unfair assessment. It is a little different because we approach the town hall a little bit differently, but it's also something where because it's a defense as the attack starts, I have attacks sometimes where it's an anti-2 or it's an anti-3-star base where it's like a diamond base with the town hall in the corner. And if they don't have a hero sitting in front of it, I can often just take the town hall down right away by dropping my royal champion and triggering her rocket spear and then recalling her out of there and not having to deal with it, which previously you would have had to do something first to activate the town hall, whether it's an earthquake spell or get the royal champion close enough so that her electro boots can hit the thing and turn it on. But I agree, in a lot of ways there hasn't been a whole lot of different dynamic. I would have been more interested in seeing some, I'll just, for lack of a better way to describe it, weird defensive stuff, whether it's new traps that are tornado trap esque or like air sweepers, stuff like that that doesn't necessarily. It's like they're all just iterations of dealing damage, right? Regardless of what it is. It's a wizard tower, it's a mortar, it's a ricochet cannon. They all just deal damage, and they deal damage in different ways. It could be looking like lightning, it could be looking like fire, it could be looking like poison, but it's all just different ways of dealing damage. I think the air sweepers and the tornado traps are the kind of thing that I would have liked to see for Town Hall 17 introduce more quirky, gimmicky things that are like I thought the Giga Bomb was going to present some of that, where we'd be like, oh man, things felt like they were going okay. There's a little bit of uncertainty in there because traps can be important. I thought maybe we would get something like that, but it hasn't really felt fundamentally dissimilar from Town Hall 16. It would have if the Firespitters stayed at 640 DPS, though.
I was really hopeful walking out of that initial presentation, like because we thought it was scary. It looked tough. We only saw one real attack, but it looked tough, which is exactly what I wanted coming out of 16 when the hit rate was so incredibly high. And Town Hall 17 hasn't changed that. It's just kind of maintained it. The last 6 months of Town Hall 16, like I always use the Champs 1 hit rates as like the gauge of the overall Town Hall difficulty, but we're looking at like if you want to look at May on from Town Hall 16, it's like 67, 66, and then we get 72, 77, 79 is like the high in September. That was right before the Druid nerf. And Town Hall 17, the Champs 1 hit rate has been the first month was 64, which is the lowest it's ever been. And then and then it's 71, 75, 70, 75, 72. The game hasn't like at least Town Hall 16 ramped up to there. It started a little harder. It took us all a while to adjust, and despite Root Riders being insanely more powerful on release, but the addition of equipment ramped up that hit rate, and as we got more equipment and more powerful equipment. But I don't know, yeah, it's just offensively, Town Hall 17 has always been crazy strong, and I don't know, like that's the real disappointment factor for me for 17 is just how strong offensively it is. And I don't know, I guess moving on to the rest of the offense too. I think what I said about throwers originally was like I don't even talk about these stupid things.
Does anyone even use them?
I tried to make them work for a while. I think they do work and they can work. They're not consistent enough for me to want to try and like main throwers. Like Trample, have you even cooked a thrower in the last 6 months?
I mean, I have too many accounts and I play the game too often, even though I'm mad at Supercell for killing squad busters. But I might actually wind up. We do have a guy in our clan in the good guys that uses throwers incredibly well. And to me, it feels, it's like, it starts with a fireball attack and then a little bit of pathing. It feels very similar to the Super Witch Army compositions, but the range on the throwers is obviously really strong. And because it's backed by healers, again, it's what I was describing before. It's one of the viable army comps because it's a bigger, tankier troop and it is supported by healers. I think for me, I never really got into fireball attacks. And I used to love watching your fireball druid attacks when the druid was a little bit stronger. Well, I guess when the druid was viable back in its heyday before it got its massive nerf. And I was always really impressed with those attacks. I thought they were cool. It was kind of surgical. You take apart one part of the base and slowly work your way through the rest of it. Throwers really can do that, but I notice there are some layouts that are generally avoided in a way that a lot of the other army compositions, I think, are maybe a little bit more flexible. And I recently was thinking, oh, what I should do is start practicing fireball with throwers, because I think that actually could be a lot of fun. I think it's a cool troop. I like the range on the troop. I always loved the super archer because the range on the super archer was so long, and the thrower has that. I was actually thinking we were going to see some army compositions where people were using thrower walk essentially, but it hasn't turned it. I mean, I guess sort of that's really what's happening, but I thought people were going to open with thrower walks and then go into something else, as opposed to opening with a fireball for pathing and then going into throwers being supported by healers. So they're definitely viable. It takes a long time. And because I do have too many accounts and I play a little bit too much, I prefer attacks that I can either get through very quickly or ones that don't require necessarily as much concentration on the attack. And the throwers, they do require a little bit more, like I'm watching very closely. Every moment counts. I got to use my spells at the right time. I got to throw in a funneling troop at the right time to keep them going the right direction. So they're strong. I just think that there are so many other options that are better and easier to execute. So that's why I don't use them.
I've literally hardly touched them. I maybe try them out once. There was just no reason to use them when there's just better options. I mean, yeah, that was kind of the bottom line for me. There were just better options. Why would I use them?
I mean, there was a month where the super thrower was in game and viable. So I loved the Yeeter when that was in game. That was essentially just a thrower, but it needed the massive power boost to really be viable. The thrower's range is kind of like a blessing and a curse, because a lot of times they can hang back and stay safe and get healed and attack things long range, but there's also
their pathing.
Yeah, like the extended vision gives them this little ADD vibe where they can see things further off and they split up and that's when throwers kind of fall apart. And I'm not good enough of a funneler to manage throwers consistently like that and avoid them all just going 5 different directions in the core and dying individually.
Which is ironic because they only have one eye.
Yeah, and then we also got the Minion Prince. We got a new hero for the first time in a while. And, it's been good.
We were not too impressed with the Prince.
So I still am not necessarily as big a fan of the Minion Prince as I was hoping I would be. He definitely adds a little something. What I did not expect is to see the Minion Prince as a standard hero replacing the Barbarian King in a ground smash army like the Root Riders and Valkyries. Because Rick uses the Minion Prince instead of the King for his attacks. And it still boggles my mind because I don't. I use the Barbarian King. He sets a really nice funnel by himself, but that's something that I did not expect. And I'm impressed with how well the Minion Prince is able to support some of those ground armies. So that is a little bit different from what I expected. But for me, in the air attacks, I feel like he has done sort of kind of what I expected, which is he feels like an auto include for any dragon based attack because he's a flying hero and he deals a lot of damage. But I just don't love his equipment. I feel like it doesn't necessarily synergize that well because his best ability is the Dark Orb, which is something that you want to use in a more targeted fashion. But then his metal pants are the kind of thing you sort of want to save that, like the Royal Champion Seeking Shield and the Royal Gem, her original abilities. We would save that until she was, taking a lot of damage and she was about to go down. It was more like a later in the attack type of thing. And that's kind of how the metal pants feel. You want him to have taken some damage so you can get the full benefit of the hit point recovery that he has. And you want him to be taking some damage so that you can get the benefit from the shield that comes in. But the need for that shield and the recovery does not always line up well with when you would want to use the Dark Orb. So then I wind up finding myself going, oh, well, I'm just going to throw the minion puppet on him. But I really like his Noble Iron because it gives that extra little long range, but it also kind of feels a little meh just because it doesn't usually get more than just some trash. So I think because his abilities, in my mind, haven't really done a lot and don't necessarily synergize all that well. Recently, again, throwing all my Town Hall 17s back in Legend League, one of them is tinkering with a variety of different dragon-based Hydra type of armies. And I've got some where I'm not using the Minion Prince and ones where I am using the Minion Prince. And I don't really notice that big of a difference with having him in the army. Because if I swap him out to keep the King and the Royal Champion, because I've tinkered with pulling both of them out, I'm usually winding up with very similar success. So I don't know if he just looks cool and feels good to have in the army because it's a flying army. But I don't know, he's more flexible and versatile, I guess, than I was expecting, but I also don't think he's as powerful as I was hoping he would be.
I mean, on occasions he has saved me. Like I was going against an Inferno downer, and he does do a lot of damage on his own. So thanks to him, on occasion it did save me an attack or two. But on average, I think you're mostly right, where it doesn't make that huge a difference that you notice it. But in those lucky situations, I think it's pretty useful. So, well, when you need him the most.
But there is some confirmation bias there, though, right? Like you're
Yeah,
actually,
of course, yeah.
it's like you saw him do something, but what you don't know is if you had your Barbarian King in there instead, would the Barbarian King's spiky ball have taken down that Inferno tower? Would the Barbarian King's earthquake boots have opened up that compartment to let him get in there and take it down? Or would the Barbarian King have created such a funnel that all of your dragons, instead of, we all run into this. We think we funneled really well, and then all of a sudden our dragons are like, gold mine, elixir collector. Oh, I'm going to go for the gold storage. And they're just sweeping around on the perimeter while they're taking damage from a monolith, from a single target Inferno tower, from a multi-archer tower. And instead, if the king had been there and had funneled that side, would the dragons all be in the core focused on the defenses? And in a lot of cases, I'm not really noticing that big of a difference between, like, I actually spent 2 days using no Royal Champion in my Hydra attacks, and I was getting very similar results to all the other combinations that I was doing. And I thought, there's no way I would ever do this without my Royal Champion. And I think it's a nod and a testament to Supercell's balancing that, for the most part, they are able to make a lot of stuff relatively interchangeable.
Is there maybe a bit of an indictment to the fact that stuff is just so strong generally that it doesn't actually maybe always matter too much how you switch up your heroes, for example, because they're all just very strong?
Yeah, I know that's kind of what I was gonna say. Is like, it just, to me, it just sounded like you guys were just describing a well balanced hero system. It is nice to say, like, he fits in a couple different ways. You can use him. It's largely, like, at least in the attacks I'm familiar with, it's the choice of King or Minion Prince. Which is not something I would have predicted. I think I said more often than not, I'm probably going to lose my Queen in favor of the Minion Prince, was my first impression, which ended up not being true at all. But I'm a fan of the Minion Prince. I think it's a strong hero. It's my preferred hero with my attack right now. There's a lot of situations where you're saying, yeah, a spiky ball would have done better, but there's equally as many scenarios too where at the end of an attack, I'd rather have the Minion Prince flying over walls instead of a Barbarian King taking 15 seconds to beat through a wall. The Prince ended up in a much better spot than I would have imagined from the get-go.
Yeah, and it's good it didn't fall into the trap which some pets have, where they're just not used. I mean, at least every single hero is still viable, unlike about half the pets, which nobody actually uses anymore.
All right, I think that wraps up Minion Prince. Real quick, 55 space CC in Town Hall 17. I think
3 Yetis.
yes, like 3 Yetis was. Is that the only new big CC change
I think
that really happened?
I think so, yeah.
And 3 Yetis has been massive.
Yeah, that's about it. Everything else is just, I was doing couple of different combinations that involve like an Electro Titan and a Yeti, or just a whole bunch of balloons and a Dragon Rider. And a lot of my Clan Castle combinations really now, with like, it just includes one more Hog Rider or it includes one more balloon, with the exception of catching that breakpoint to be able to get a third Yeti, which is definitely great for so many armies.
Even like defensively, there's not even really much more going on with that 5 space, is there? You can
No.
do things like, you see Super Dragon, Ice Golem, which you couldn't have done before, but I don't know that that's really game changing.
No, I actually lately I've been liking seeing that, because that's less ice golems to have to wait through with my Root Riders and Valkyries.
3 Yetis was math that I hadn't done immediately yet. I know you were the one who pointed that out to me. So hey, I think if there's one thing we nailed out of that initial talk, it was like 3 Yeti blimps.
This is a great argument for everyone to listen to your predictions next time they come around.
So but yeah,
well, we're probably gonna get something. Well, part of it though, some of what there's actually a lot of stuff that we actually said that I think is pretty true. We were both pretty meh on the throwers. We both felt like Town Hall 17 was going to be more difficult than Town Hall 16, but we were making that assumption predicated on Firespitters dealing about 50% more damage than they deal right now. So if I had seen the Firespitters,
we'll let you off.
If I had seen the Firespitters going at the same rate that they're going right now, and tested and tinkered with the Firespitters at the same damage they have right now, I would not have necessarily been as impressed, and I would have had the assessment that it's probably going to be a little bit more of Town Hall 16.
And we also didn't really know the impact that Electro Boots were going to have soon either, which I think has been the Town Hall 17 defining meta. Not that it's only a Town Hall 17 attack, because it, obviously you can start that at Town Hall 13, but
yeah, Town Hall 17, if you don't have Electro Boots in the meta, and just, let's say, replace that with the Minion Prince had launched with some epic piece of equipment that wasn't broken, like the Electro Boots, the Electro Boots is what has defined the hit rates at Town Hall 17. We know this from Champs 1 spins, Champs 2 spins. It is all of the clans that are doing well have some heavier footprint of some type of Spirit Walk to start the attack. And they did nerf it, and I was saying in the creator program, it's not enough. And I was debating with a couple of different people at the time, saying I just don't think that the nerf that we're proposing is going to do what we want to really bring the power of the Electro Boots down. It needed a lower DPS on the aura, or it needed a smaller radius on the aura. It needed something to prevent it from being the really unstoppable juggernaut that it is. I mean, I don't know that anybody has the Electro Boots and doesn't use them, whereas a lot of people will have the spiky ball but maybe opt for something else, or they've got the magic mirror and they opt for something else, or they've got clearly the fireball but they're not using a fireball attack. I don't know if I've seen an attack that doesn't use the Electro Boots, even if it's a different army composition, it's not using a Spirit Walk. It is just such a powerful ability.
I mean, even just the ability to just kill skeletons straight away. I mean, I'd argue that'd be worth it alone, and then you add in everything else. I mean, it's just brilliant, and brilliantly broken. I mean, do you guys use? I mean, we got two more equipments. Kind of this. Recently we got the snake bracelet, the action figure. I mean, do you guys use them much?
I'm still leveling up the action figure and kind of don't want to use it until it's fully maxed. But not yet.
Fully maxed, really?
Yeah, I have this weird belief where it's like, unless it's maxed, it won't be any good. So.
Well, that is ridiculous, but okay.
I like both of them, but my Archer Queen go-to equipment has always been the Giant Arrow and the Healer Puppet for the majority of my attacks. I love her. I love the funneling that she's able to create very quickly, because the Giant Arrow can often take 1 or 2 or 3 buildings in her corner, not even worrying about all the extra crap she pulls off across the base. But it'll often take out a couple of buildings right in her corner, and then she's already weakened a few other things. So it sets a very nice funnel, and then, of course, giving her the healers. I've looked at the possibility for some army compositions of swapping out and using the action figure instead of the healer puppets. I've also tried using the action figure instead of the Giant Arrow, and I do have some success with them, but I just really love her Giant Arrow healer puppet. And the snake bracelet is something that for a lot of my Smash armies that I use, like right now I'm doing a I'm calling it dual Yetis. It's 4 super Yetis, 4 regular Yetis, but it's my 8 Earthquake blowing the base wide open. And I use the Snake Bracelet with the Barbarian King because just all the extra troops in the core are very, very helpful. They tank, they have a decent number of hit points at 500 apiece. Not a ton of DPS, but it does add up over the course of the attack. And because I'm already using 8 Earthquake spells to pile through there, I don't necessarily need it. Because the Earthquake boots are not going to help. One of our clan mates, he's the strongest attacker in our clan, has recently been using the Snake Bracelet for some of his Root Rider attacks, especially even in hard mode, because the Barbarian King is able to sort of just walk the perimeter, taking out external buildings, and have the snakes jumping the walls, taking out some of the first row of defenses there. And that's also been something that has been pretty useful. But the dynamic is so different in hard mode.
I was about to say, that's the thing. In hard mode, Snake Bracelet's actually quite popular, isn't it?
Which I don't do hard mode, so. But I do like the Snake Bracelet. I love the idea. I think it's a really cool idea. And the same thing with the giant, with the action figure puppet. I think it's named very poorly, but they should have just called it the Andre puppet.
I think that could slightly be the story of TH17. There's a lot of kind of cool ideas, but there's just been one or two things which have been just so good that you're not very incentivized to try other things, sadly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are viable, but not optimal. So it's hard to motivate people to do different things when we're used to stuff that has a very high success rate anyway.
Yeah, it's like me using my Zapquake Root Rider Valkyrie strategy. For some bases, it's better than the Spirit Walk one, but it's not as consistent, and I do have a higher hit rate with the Spirit Walk version. And that is something that, so it's like I wanted to not just use the same stuff everybody else is using, right? I like using an overgrowth spell to funnel dragons because that's actually a very effective thing to do. And I like using an overgrowth spell to funnel my Yetis and my super Yetis. I like using lightning spells and earthquakes to create some funneling, but it truly is not as versatile and efficient as simply using a spirit walk. And I think that's an excellent point. That's what Town Hall 17 has definitely suffered from, is there are just so many very clear ways you should be attacking something that some of the creativity is a little bit lost in general.
We obviously didn't see the full Town Hall 17 plan, the multi-gear tower, the furnace. Was there anything else that came after that's new? Yeah, the bat.
Chew.
Sneezy. Do you feel any of that has really shifted your assessment of Town Hall 17 one way or another?
I mean, the furnace, they've had some sort of impact, I guess, of defensive CCs, but I'm not really thinking about them that much of Root Riders. I just deal with them. Same with the bats. I mean, I haven't used it. Sneezy. It hasn't really. Nothing's really shifted me in that kind of list.
Yeah, I know, like Shock's been putting videos out that show some really interesting furnace stuff going on. It's nice to have new kind of CCs on defense with the furnace, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the furnace needs to be a little stronger to get me to switch, but also if you make it stronger, it's just going to be, probably too strong. So I don't know. Like,
where's the middle ground?
Yeah, and the multi-gear tower it's another big defense too, but it's lost in a sea of other big defenses too, where I don't really have to plan around it. Are you guys?
I don't plan around it. I do think that the long range mode, I think, is underutilized. I did something where I was comparing the damage per second to the area of coverage that the long range mode versus the fast attack mode wind up having. And I feel like the long range mode actually does provide better coverage / damage relative to the short range mode. Although then I run into this thing where people are like, oh yeah, well, this attack that I just had, it mowed down my Minion Prince and 2 dragons. I'm like, I understand. In this other attack that you didn't really notice, that same type of layout, the long range mode ended up slowly weakening 4 of your dragons such that a multi-archer tower was able to finish it off. But I do like the longer range because with the healers and everything, by the time you get 3 or 4 Root Riders with 3 or 4 Valkyries in range with all the healing, they wind up taking it down very quickly. And if they're on the other side of a wall, a lot of times they're out of range of that defense, so there's just no peripheral damage is being dealt. I've seen plenty of times a long range multi-gear tower taking out healers because troops are going one direction and the healers are on the back end, and it winds up picking off some healers. So I do think that mode is underutilized. I like the variability. That's something that I've always enjoyed about the game, the option that we have as defenders to be able to set some slight, different parameters, whether it's the spell towers, it's even just the positioning of the builder huts. I think it's kind of cool because we're choosing what we want to heal. I like the variability, but it has, to your point, become a strong defense in a sea of other strong defenses. And early on, I would think, oh, I need to make sure I plan around that. Now, because they're all so very comparable, I don't find myself planning around anything really other than the positioning of the town hall.
The probably biggest change of everything this year wasn't town hall specific, but the removal of training time, which is in my mind, that's always going to be linked to town hall 17 because I'm at town hall 17 right now when it happened. So I know years from now, looking back, like town hall 17 is going to get a big bump in my mind just from association with this. Quality of life wise, this is maybe one of the best times in Clash ever. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was disappointed at my inability to do my 2 really quick spam attacks back to back for a lot of the way that I would farm with some of my other town halls, but my lower town halls. But what I really appreciate is it's been 3 or 4 days in a row now that I've done all of my legend attacks on 4 town hall 17s. And that's happening where like I get up in the morning and I wake up around 6 o'clock and I take my dogs for a walk. And then I usually have about an hour to an hour and a half that I kill before I leave for work. That time is usually spent either reading or playing a video game or playing Clash, not playing Squad Busters, stupid. But now I can, in 15 minutes, I can make all 8 of my legend attacks without having to spend 600 or 700 gems and burn some potions. And I think I really underestimated how good that was going to feel, because I remember back at Town Hall, 14? Town Hall 15, I think, maybe Town Hall 14. I remember my son was playing lacrosse and I would go to his lacrosse practice with him because if it was somewhere further from our house, and I would, be near, later in the evening, and I'd be trying to crank out legend attacks, and it was popping a training potion with both of my Town Hall 15s or 14s or whatever Town Hall it was at the time, and I was doing, 2 attacks on one account, and then I'd jump over and do 2 attacks on the other account. But even then, and then I'd go back to the first account, and I would try to squeeze in those 16 legend attacks during his practice, but it was costing training potions every day, and it was costing some additional gems to finish things off and speed up being able to use, the clan castle troops. And this is just, it's so nice, and it feels really, really good. We just need to be able to use heroes while they're upgrading.
Wow.
Yeah. I just had this argument last night, like on the sub too. Is this the last big quality of life thing I think that the game really needs? And it's so punishing, especially now that we got 90 more levels of a hero, which you and I and all 4 of us only had 20 levels of the Minion Prince to do. But just like another 90 levels of heroes for new players and no time reductions, essentially, for on the whole. With Town Hall 17 release, heroes got longer because now you have to account for the hero hall. Like, it can't keep going forever. It can't.
But then it's their big money maker, isn't it? Hero books. That's
It is.
that's what brings in the dollar.
I argued about this with a couple of the folks, including like the chief data dude. I forgot his name over at for the Clash team, and we were talking about what I feel like is the bigger issue is, yes, it's like a short-term thing that I am selling my hero books at a potentially higher rate than I otherwise would be selling hero books. People are still limited by the builders, and I feel like Clash Anytime has actually increased the value of having free builders, such that even with us being able to use heroes while they're upgrading, a decent price on hero books will still encourage a lot of people to buy them simply to free up the builder for an additional week. Because you get, generally speaking, you'll get a better deal on a hero book than you'll get on a book of building. And even though a book of building can be up to 2 weeks worth of stuff, you can usually get books of heroes at less than half the cost of a book of building. And it's not something that necessarily winds up always being the main value on the book of building side. So it's you can somebody who's a little bit more budget constrained can more easily buy a cheaper book of heroes than they can buy a book of building. So I feel like if you could use your heroes all the time, people would still be constantly upgrading them and probably selling just as many, if not more, hero books because they want to be able to get those heroes freed up or the builders freed up so they can start working on some kind of other upgrade. And the other thing that I think is a bigger and more important piece, which is the argument I keep making, it's long-term retention. You guys have seen it countless times over the years on the subreddit. People are like, what the heck? I have to go through, Town Hall 12. I got to go through 15 levels of hero, or if they, rushed, I got to go through 25 levels of heroes. And the grind and the perceived difficulty of not only amassing the dark elixir to upgrade all those heroes, but then not being able to use them. People go, this is stupid. I don't really want to play anymore. And so the retention is the bigger issue. I might sell a few more hero books to this one person before they quit playing versus continuing to sell hero books over the course of a 2 or 3 or 4 year plan when people are continually able to use the stuff that they have.
Yeah, I've always had the gold pass, and you can't you can't keep up, especially now with heroes. With 5 heroes, and even like the hero hall, I still think strongly implies the addition of more heroes down the line.
Oh, absolutely.
At some point, there has to be a tipping point. Like it's one of the largest issues cited when people are saying they quit is you're asking people to spend 3 years, maxing their base and catching up, and half of that you're not going to be at full strength. You're going to be hamstrung by heroes, and yeah, that's a motivator to spend money. But the majority of people are never going to spend money on any mobile game, no matter how fun it is. And I don't know. I would rather see more people with max heroes at every level of the game and increase monetization somewhere else.
Well, cosmetics would be the place to do that, wouldn't it?
They've said it a whole bunch of times. They want monetization to be focused on cosmetics, and yeah, like we get $50 worth of skins and plus a scenery every month and legendary sceneries now, and there's decorations and everything, and it hasn't relaxed monetizing heroes at all, not one bit.
No.
But they're trying to do it gradually, right? Like to see if it's a viable strategy.
I don't know what's going on, man. It's just it's a problem, and I just know it's a problem. I don't know what the solution is. So, all things considered, all the individual pieces, the defenses, troops, hero, the new stuff, how it all combines, and the pace at which they've been releasing content, what is your new overall grade for Town Hall 17?
I think I feel pretty good. I mean, I'd say at worst, honestly, for me, at worst, it's probably a B plus, maybe leaning into an A minus. And I say that I know there are times where I sound kind of like down on it a little bit, or like there are things that I don't necessarily love about it. I think the biggest complaint that I have is that the hit rate is a little bit higher in Champ 1. But the more I think about it, if the hit rate was a lot lower in Champ 1, then that means it would be punishingly low for people in Masters or in Champ 3. And I don't find that to be a healthy place. I think what it is, I like the game, I like the content where it's at. I just don't like being in a Champ 1 or Champ 2 spin and feeling like if I get a 2-star, I could easily cost us the war because maybe there's only wiggle room for 2 or 3 people to miss. Aside from that one thing, I find it fun. I find the bases to be kind of dynamic to attack. I find there to be really, honestly, a lot of different army compositions that we can tinker around with. I haven't been spending as much time using the Minion Prince and some of the Hydra armies for the last 2.5 or 3 months, maybe longer. But there's just a lot of fun stuff that we can do with the game. And I just feel like the one major thing is we talk about, the pacing of the release and how often things come out. And I've got this nostalgia for the old days where there'd be 3 or 4 updates a year with new troops getting levels and then some new defenses got levels. And I think we had this feeling of, well, we max everything pretty quickly, and then we got like a month and a half or so until the next update. And then we max things, and then there's another month and a half until the next update. And that didn't feel that bad because we only had these like 1.5 month periods at a time. But now that it's like all the buildings, all the troops, everybody's got a new level, there's still like half the year to go. But if they can fill that time with whether it's a seasonal event or if it's some of the, not not a month of WWE content, because that sapped it a little bit for me. And honestly, I don't even know that I would have minded a month of just strong troops, because I can still play the game how I want to play the game. So if they are able to pepper in some things that keep things a little exciting, a little bit fresh, and throw in some events every now and then, I think the seasonal troops can be a lot of fun and they can be something that keeps us exciting. But I don't know. I think B plus at worst. If it wasn't for feeling like I just wish the hit rates were slightly lower in Champ 1, but then the same everywhere else, I would probably call it an A minus. But I hate that feeling of dread of like 14 of my clanmates are probably going to get 3 stars, and if I miss, I might cost us the whole war. So, but I don't think that'll ever get fixed. I don't think it'll ever be hard enough to where 4 or 5 of us are consistently missing in a Champ 1 spin and not have it be really, really, really hard for slightly more casual players.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. Like, I have all these contradictory feelings about it. I wish the game were harder. I love how successful I am right now. um, we're 6 months into this town hall. I am still having fun. I'm still playing it daily. I am racing through all my attacks and wanting to do more. It's the first time I wish I had more accounts at the same town hall level. Like, I built all mine to be different town halls. And like I said earlier, I'm kind of over the lower town hall experience because it's just far too diluted and easy now. So as of right now, I'm kind of right there with you around that B minus level. There's a lot of things have been fixed. Fixing those things has highlighted separate problems that I hope get addressed. Really, long term, I need to see how the rest of Town Hall 17 plays out.
I agree in a lot of ways with one. Like, I do enjoy feeling successful. And right now I have 4 Town Hall 17s in Legend League for the first time. I think it's the first time I've ever had all my max bases in Legend League at the same time. Well, since I've had at least 3 or more. And because of the ability to clash anytime, I'm actually able to squeeze in 32 Legend League attacks. But it's fun trying different army combinations and doing different things and being able to sort of test it in the wild and not just friendly challenge against my same bases or some of my clanmates' same bases over and over again. But I agree with you, there is that feeling of like competence and feeling good. And I know I didn't necessarily feel as good, like I was saying, the beginning of this Clan War League for the month of May. But right now, having practiced a little bit, I'm feeling wildly competent at the moment. And it does feel good. And that's going to help me feel very positive about it.
Yeah, we're never going to go back to the Town Hall 15 kind of hit rates. We're never going to go back to the Town Hall 14 kind of hit rates, which, looking back, that's kind of where I feel the sweet spot was. But this is the way forward, it seems. So I'm just along for the ride now.
And I'll be with you every step of the way.
All right, Liam, what about you?
Overall grade for Town Hall 17, I'd say, is a B minus. Mostly, I feel like they're releasing a lot of stuff, and it's changing the meta quite quickly. I don't know. It feels, yeah. I still haven't been maxed once yet at Town Hall 17, and I know you mentioned that as well. So I feel like maybe they're releasing too quickly, whereas I know at previous Town Halls we always had the time to at least kind of sit a while for max, wait until new walls level dropped, or stuff like that. So yeah, overall I feel like maybe they're rushing into it, but I also haven't been bored at all. So maybe that's a good thing. And for the overall play base, I feel like it could be a similar sentiment. What do you think, Sam?
My current thoughts on Town Hall 17 is it's a B. It's very, very good so far. I thought the fact that the Town Hall 8 the Eagle Artillery would be a bad move by Clash of Clans, though it has worked out quite well in their favour. The updates have been quite solid so far. The events have all been very, very good, and the time with WWE was a very good move for reduction.
A whole lot of B's going around today, yeah. Like, it seems like we're all kind of in the same spot.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
The town hall is currently progressing very well. It's a very It's not as bad as Town Hall 15 as overpowered, though it is still a good challenge for the actual Town Hall itself for players. And the troops seem to be in a balanced place. The equipment seems to be more balanced these days and not as horrendously bad. We still got the boots, but the boots are quite a good tactic at the moment, and they're not too OP, but that invisibility spell thing is good. And we've had an update for the tome now, which is interesting. See how that affects the player base going forward. I feel like all the updates have been positive at the moment, and people have only been complaining about cosmetics being behind the paywall, which is very good. The town hall aesthetically looks very good for goth players, and many players have been wanting a town hall-esque style for many years. So them doing it now was the best time. And there's a very good variety of troops that can be used in different attacks, and them removing training times has greatly made the whole player base better because more people can play more, and then that means Clash of Clans can get more money, meaning they can remove more things in the future.
Yeah. I didn't know you were goth, Sam.
Yep. That about wraps it up. Let's move on to questions, Liam.
Perfect.
Yeah, moving on. So are events a net positive in game? Would you change anything about them?
That's a very, very 3-hour question right there. I feel
Yeah,
like
maybe we could do rapid fire questions.
yeah, I feel like the events are something that can be used incredibly well in the game to provide fun and engaging activities that are different from just the normal day-to-day grind as we are playing through, but some of them can be over-engineered, and I feel like April was an example of over-engineering at its peak. With the addition of the troops in the army camps, for me, it completely broke my desire to play in the month of April because I couldn't practice my normal attacks because the army camps threw off the pathing and they threw off the entry points. And so I don't mind the events when there's like really powerful broken troops. I don't even care about taking 320-day losses of trophies in Legend League because everybody's tripling with stuff, because I can still choose not to use those troops. But I think that we over engineered it to the point that it even made my desire to attack disappear even with regular army compositions because it just changed the landscape of the game. And so that's one where I feel like there's a fine line between having something cool and fun and exciting and having something that actually will demotivate people. And I think April was an example of one end of the spectrum where they demotivated, and the other end of the spectrum would be an event like the streak event where we were like, oh, who cares? So
Yeah.
I think there's a massive spectrum of what they can do with events, but I do feel like it is the key to helping people stay engaged in between the normal daily grind.
Yeah, I want to see him continue to build out the portfolio of events because the variety is important. I'm kind of over medal events, and there's a lot of reasons why, but the Gold Rush was a nice change overall. Yeah, I know. I just want to see a wider variety. Some are going to have to be duds. It's going to be trial and error. But yeah, I just want to see him keep trying to expand the repertoire.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you believe lowering hero hammers cost to 120 zero minnows is beneficial to the player base?
I don't know. I feel like the heroes should just be able to be used while they're upgrading, no matter what. I don't know that I feel like the spend on that is beneficial, because even if it was at 100 instead of 120, I still think in the long term spectrum of the game, you are better off spending that on a book of building to hit a 2-week upgrade on something, or I'm sorry, a hammer of building or a hammer of fighting, where you can take a really long dark elixir upgrade and get even more value, because it's not just the resource cost, but the time cost, and the hero upgrade time is just shorter.
Yeah, fair enough.
They really need to shorten hero upgrade times, like they really do. And then when that happens, it's got to happen at some point, right? Please.
Yes, absolutely.
When that happens, you know, accompanying adjustments to hero book costs and hero hammer costs are due, but the cynical side of me says that's not going to happen at any reasonable pace.
They'll become a bottleneck soon if they don't do it, though. So,
I mean, as if heroes aren't now.
in consideration for free-to-play players, what is the opinion for accessing content behind a gem paywall?
Never.
Never.
Like, no, I will throw such a fit. I will get myself thrown out of the creator program, and if there's ever like content locked behind a real paywall, like you can kind of argue there's like a soft gem paywall lock right now with trying to access older equipment, and I don't know. I think they need to expand ways to pick up the older stuff. If there's ever a hard paywall, I'm out.
Yeah, that would feel really bad because that's just gonna cripple like the game. The game needs a lot of free to play players to continue to thrive because out of a mass of free to play players, some of them who want to continue buying gold passes and stick with the game for as long as we have will eventually emerge and be replaced by a new generation of free to play players. And if things become so daunting early on that people feel like, oh, I can't progress through this if I'm not spending money, it will slow the funnel and result in fewer players reaching higher levels, which would bring about the demise of the game much more rapidly. And I do appreciate that they added older equipment into some of the newer metal events so that people could get a hold of the spiky ball or the electro boots or the lava loon puppet, such an amazing piece of equipment.
Who would win in a running race, Trample or coolrick?
Not Trample, easy.
I would. He has plastic kneecaps.
Yeah, dude, I was hobbling around Finland too. Like my knee was screwed up. I sprained my ankle right then too. Dude, getting old, not cool. Avoid it if you can.
And this is not a dig against Rick, but I actually have a pretty decent amount of stamina, and I'm pretty light on my feet. So
Yeah, Trample is like 115 pounds too. Like he's a little guy.
I am almost 150, and I'm about 5'10", which now that Sam's not here, I don't have to try and convert that into normal worldwide measures. But yeah, I'm pretty light on my feet.
Alright, do you think we should be able to stack snacks for longer? I think that's a definite yes, right?
No.
Yes.
No, I don't think so.
Alright, thanks, Vic.
The express intent of snacks has always been like, here's something, use it now. Don't hoard it. Quit being a wiener who wants to be the most efficient at everything. Like, this is not EVE Online. Here's some stuff. Use it now for a small benefit. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think that creates a fundamental problem with how they disperse snacks because we often get them in it. Like we'll get a lot of them at once, and now okay, like I would love to save some of these to use over the next week, but that's not the intent. I think they just need to adjust how often we get them, and we need more snacks spread out across a longer period of time for them to feel better.
So I don't think that it needs to be increased dramatically, but I do think you should get more than 24 hours. I think even if it's just 2 days or 3 days, something just to create a little bit. I know it's nice as a call to action, and that's part of the benefit of it, right? Somebody gets the snack and they think, oh, I need to use this, and that's a great idea. I think that it would be just slightly better if people had like a 2-day window, like, oh, we just declared battle day right now, or the war that we're in is ending. I'd love to be able to use this for the next war. Oh, but the battle day is going to happen after 24 hours from now. So I think like a second day or a third day would be great because it still has a call to action. It still makes you want to use it, but it just provides a little bit more flexibility, particularly when it's going to allow me to get better equipment, better heroes, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's really fair because, like, if I do my 2 war attacks really early in a war, and then I get the equipment maxing one, I'm 47 hours out from the next war. So yeah, I think a 2-day window would be fair.
Yeah, fair enough. Last two questions. Should Supercell add another tab in the trader that's accessible to gold pad purchases? Give additional incentive to have users provide consistent revenue to the game?
Sure. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that opportunities for them, anything that we can do to pave a path toward heroes being usable while they're upgrading, I think would be an amazing thing. And I think that it would be a great idea. It's not something that would be forced down our throats. It's not something that we would have as an expectation. And you might actually have an opportunity to turn what would have been otherwise one microtransaction into a couple of microtransactions for somebody who splurges one month, says, you know what, I'm going to go for the gold pass this month. And then in addition to that, $7 or 12,000, whatever it costs in Canada. In addition to that $7 spend, you also maybe can get a couple of extra things. I would be in favor of that.
It feels a little icky to me.
As long as it doesn't impact free-to-play players negatively, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't mean like you can't get the third Ricochet cannon unless you get it from the Gold Pass shop. I just mean like right now, all the daily deals that we see that pop into the game, if you had a few more of those, but they were, limited to the
Exclusive.
Gold Pass players. I don't mean like it's a super deep discount on ore that can only be acquired there, or it's a super deep discount on equipment that you missed. That's, well, I don't know. Maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea. But I do think it done appropriately, it could be beneficial.
What would you like to see beside Electro Boots? Do you believe there is enough skill required to 3-star in the current attacks?
Yes. And I was using a non-royal, it was a Hydra army for a day and a half using no royal champion. And I was able to make it work through some creative pathing and planning. It wasn't a 320 day in Legend League. I think I was at like 5,500 trophies and I had 4 triples. And that felt really good. That felt like I was proud of myself. I felt impressed. I felt like on the attacks where I didn't get a triple, I felt like, okay, if I had another shot at that one, I think I'd be able to do it. And it helps challenge that creative side of me. So there are options. It's just we are definitely sitting on a couple of things that make the game a lot less difficult. And there's some fun in smashing stuff up, but there's also a joy that comes with being able to successfully puzzle through how to take something down. That's something that I feel like I've been missing a little bit more frequently, which is why I do have multiple accounts that I'm trying just different goofy army compositions on, because finding interesting ways of making things work is really rewarding.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up then.
Yeah. Liam, do you have any shout outs?
Shout out to Spencer for all the hard work he's doing on the events and the behind the scenes.
I'm going to say there's a guy in our clan, Frankie, who has been, he kind of discovered a niche recently where he's just requesting 2 siege machines constantly all day long. So I was able to finish out my siege donating achievement in the last couple days just because he's got to just keep it open on his laptop or something and just delete sieges and every 2 minutes all day long. So man, I got so many siege donations done. So Frankie, thank you. And Trample, is there anything you want to say to anyone?
Yes, I'm going to give a shout out to my daughter who just came downstairs, and she is valedictorian for her high school. Absolutely smashed it all through high school. Straight A's, tons of AP classes, and is going to be attending UCLA in the fall. I'm very proud of her. It's a difficult school to get into, particularly for out-of-state students, but she's amazing, and I'm incredibly proud of her. Almost as impressive is that my wife and I will be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary this year. So as always, a big shout out to her, even though she probably won't even be paying attention when I tell her about what we were talking about today. She might not even ask how it went, but I'm gonna give her a shout out anyway because she is my best friend in the absolute world, and I am very lucky to have her. So love my family. My son, he'll be home in a few days. I'm just kidding. He's awesome. He'll be home. He's gonna be home on the 22nd. He's so old news. I'm excited. He is definitely one of my favorite human beings. But he'll be home on the 22nd in time for my daughter's graduation and my birthday, and I'm looking forward to a nice, fun, relaxing family summer and chilling with some of you guys. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come in here and chill with you guys and talk for a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. It's a pleasure as always. Of course, everyone else, we will see you in like 2 weeks.
Use code
Bye,
coolrick.
everyone.
Oh yeah, creator codes. we have them. Code Trample if you want to support this guy. Or hey, if maybe you found what I said to be a little more to your liking, code coolrick as well.
Code coolrick till he gets his first payout.
Yeah, or just like
Code Spencer
buy,
as well.
but buy a bunch of stuff.
Stock up on ore with code coolrick.
I am gonna do. Should I ever get to the payout threshold? I think I'm like a third of the way there. Yeah, we'll give away a bunch of gold passes and that'll be fun. But all right, yeah,
that's it.
yeah. Let's just end it. All right, see you guys later.
Bye, everyone.
Beep boop boop.